Oh, hello, great readers. I'm Belchan.
I'm Nimakong.
I'm Banchan.
In this class, I'll read to all of you a part of Great Expectations.
As.
Ah.
Great Expectations. Charles Dickens. Tab 25 Sec 1. Bentley Drummle. Its writer had done him an injury. Did not take up an acquaintance in a more agreeable spirit. Heavy in figure, movement, and comprehension in the sluggish complexion of his face, and in the large, in a room 'twas idle, proud, eagerly, reserved, and suspicious. He came over to people down in Somersetshire, just of age and a blockhead. That Bentley Drum had come to Mr. Pocket when he was a head taller than that. Gentleman, and half a dozen heads thicker than most gentlemen, to have been at school. But he was devotedly attached to her, and admired her beyond measure. He had a woman's delicacy of feature, and was, as you may see, natural that I should take to much more kindly than to Drummle, and that, even in the earliest evenings of our boating, he and I should pull homeward abreast of one another, conversing from boat to boat, while Bentley Drum came up in our wake alone, under the overhanging banks and among the rushes. He would always creep inshore like some uncomfortable amphibious creature, even when the tide would have sent him fast upon his way. The backwater, when our own two boats were breaking the sunset or the moonlight in midstream. Herbert was my intimate companion and friend. I presented him with a half share in my boat, which was the occasion of his often coming down to Hammersmith, and my position of a half share in his chambers often took me up to London. We used to walk between the two places at all hours. Road as it was then, formed an impressibility of untried youth and hope. When I had been in Mr. Pocket's family a month or two, Mr. and nice Camilla turned up. Camilla was Mr. Pocket's sister, Georgiana, whom I had seen at Miss Havisham's on the same occasion, also turned up. She was a cosset and indigestive single woman, who called her rigidity religion, and her liver love. These people hated me with the hatred of cupidity and disappointment. As a matter of course, they fawned upon me and my prosperity with the base meanness towards Mr. Beckett, as a grown-up infant with no notion of his own interests. They showed the complacent forbearance I had heard them express. Mice Pocket they held in contempt, but they allowed the both to have been heavily disappointed in life, because that shed a feeble reflected light upon themselves. These were the surroundings among which I settled down, and applied myself to my education. I soon contracted expensive habits, should have thought almost fabulous, but through good and evil I stuck to my books. There was no other merit in this than my having sense enough to feel my deficiencies. Between Mr. Pocket and Herbert I got on fast, and then wanted and clear obstructions out of my road. I must have been as great a dolt as Drumle if I had done less. I had not seen Mr. Womack for some weeks. Him on a certain evening, he replied that it would give him much pleasure, and that he would expect me at the office at 6 o'clock. Thither I went, and there I found him, putting the key of his safe down his back as the clock struck. "You think of walking down to Warth?" said he. "Certainly," said I. "Very much," was Womack's reply, "for I have had my legs under the desk all day, and shall be glad to stretch them. And I'll tell you what I have got for supper. Mr. Pill from the cook's shop. I think it's tender. Other day." And we let him down easy. I reminded him of it when I bought the fowl, and I said, "Pick us out a good one, Old Britain, because if we had chosen to keep you in the box another day or two, we could easily have done it," he said to that. And, of course, as far as it goes, it's property and portable. You don't object, an aged parent. I really thought he was still speaking of the fowl, until he added, "required. So, you haven't dined with Mr. Jaggers yet?" he pursued, as we walked on. "He told me so this afternoon when he heard you were coming. I expect he'll have an invitation tomorrow. He's going to ask your pals. The 3 of them. Associates." I answered, "Well, curves you. He'll give you good. Don't look forward to variety, but you'll have excellence. And there's another thing in his house," proceeded Womack, after a moment's pause, as if the remark followed on the housekeeper understood. "That's it," returned Womack. "He says, and gives it out publicly, 'I want to see the men who will rob me. Lord bless you, I have heard him 100 times. If I have heard him once, say to regular cracksman in our front office, you know where I live, and no bolt is ever drawn there. Why don't you do a stroke of business with me? Come, can't him, not a man of them. So, would be bold enough to try it on.' They dread him so much," said I. "Dread him," said Womack. "I believe you they dread him. Not but what he's artful, even in his defiance of them. Oh, silver, sorrow, bright any metal, so they would match I observed. Ah, but he would have match," said Womack, cutting me short. "And they know it. He'd have their lives, and the lives of scores of him. He'd have all he could get, and it's impossible to say what he could get." I was filling into meditation on my guardian's greatness, when Womack remarked, as to the absence of plate, "That's only his natural depth. You know, a river's its natural depth, and he's his natural depth. Look at his watch chain. It's very massive," said I. "Massive," repeated Womack. "I think so. And his watch is a gold repeater, and worth 100 £100 if it's worth a penny. Wister. In. There are about 700 thieves in this town who know all about that watch. There's not a man, a woman, or a child among them who wouldn't identify the smallest link in that chain and drop it as if it was red hot. At first with such discourse, and afterwards with conversation of a more general nature, did Mr. Womack and I beguile the time and the road, until he gave me to understand that we had arrived in the district of Walworth. It appeared to be a collection of back lanes, ditches, and little gardens, and the present aspect of a rather dull retirement. Womack's house was a little wooden cottage in the midst of plots of garden. "Thens my undoing," said Womack. "Looks pretty." I highly commended it. I think it was the smallest house I ever saw, with the queer Gothic windows, by far the greater part of them sham. To be continued.